percent overall from the field, but he was also 50% from threes. He's 5 of 10.
I know you're out there. It's okay. Stand back there.
No, more than likely, you're going to get that number 1 seed. And so I want Houston to be ranked at number 1 and 8.
Welcome in to another episode of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. We are coming off the heels of non-conference play officially done for the Houston Cougars men's basketball team, number 3 ranked Houston, that is, and they finished a perfect 13-0, wrapping up their non-conference slate with a dominating 81-42 victory over Penn. And quite frankly, the score 81-42, it seems a lot closer than it actually was, most definitely when it comes to that first half, where it just looked like Houston flat out was dominating. It was just lopsided at times. Penn looked bamboozled in this contest, specifically in that first half, where, I mean, on offense, it just seemed like they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. A lot of turnovers for Penn in that first half. When we look at it from the Houston perspective, it was LJ Cryer that led the way with scoring. He had 16 points. Jamal Shedd not too far behind him with 14 points. And it was JoJo Tugler in his first collegiate career start, who had 13 points, 7 rebounds. Again, an all-out dominating performance for Houston in their final non-conference slate. They begin their inaugural Big 12 conference play a week from today, January 6th, against West Virginia. But let's focus on this game against Penn first. Joining me, Kris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review. Kris, how you doing, sir?
Doing okay, Andy. How are you? And welcome to everybody who's tuning in.
I'm doing great. We are both from the Fertitta Center, so kind of a little bit of a throwback. It's been a while since we've been able to do a show where we're both here live at the Fertitta Center. And of course, like you said, Kris, we want to welcome in Big Jack 512, Wanda Polk, Justin Singleton. Big Jack absolutely says, let's rage. Let's get into it. And of course, this is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. Takeaways from this lopsided game, I think, obviously the most noteworthy. I think it was kind of interesting to hear Kelvin Sampson's comments after the game as well, but no Jawan Roberts in this game. That's the reason why JoJo Tugler started. Kelvin Sampson said that he did not even ask Jawan Roberts if he was going to be good to play in this game. He said he felt he needed a rest, didn't even bother to ask, but I say it was interesting because maybe I'm just reading too much into it, Kris, but did Kelvin seem a little bit cryptic in terms of the status of Jawan Roberts?
It seemed like through coach's words that Juan is going to miss some time. That's what I thought. So
I agree.
We'll see. He kind of hinted at, he said how the team looked. He referenced the Cougars, not having today's game, not having Jarris Walker, Marcus Sasser, Jamal Mark, and Jawan Roberts. That's 4 starters.
Yeah, I picked that up.
And then he said, I'm looking forward to seeing how this team does the next 30 days. And I was like, is coach trying to tell us that Juan is going to miss more time than just today? So it was kind of strange, but we don't know.
We'll see.
Juan was in his warm-up pants before the game, helping his teammates, shoot, practice shots, things like that. We'll see. I mean, next game is next Saturday. Open up Big 12 play, home against West Virginia. He wasn't needed today. He was missed, but he wasn't needed today. And the Cougs jumped out to an 18-zip lead and never looked back.
I want to bring up this comment by Raul in HD, which I think it might be the first time he's commented on the show. He said he thought Penn would be a challenge going into it, but he was 100% wrong. To be honest, Kris, I was a little bit surprised with how lopsided. I was a little bit surprised, but then when you think about it, the 9 days off that the Houston Cougars were got from rest when it came to not in between games and having their last few days to being able to practice and hunker down. I was surprised it wasn't as competitive as it was in that first half, but when you think about it, Houston was really well prepared for this outing. Were you surprised by the outcome of it, especially in that first half?
Penn missed. They shot a whole bunch of threes. They made 1 2-point basket in the first half. Majority of their shots were threes. They missed them. When they weren't missing threes, they're turning it over way more than their shot attempts. So that was a problem. But Penn battled Kentucky earlier this season, but Kentucky's defense is not like Houston's defense, so it's different. We've said in numerous shows, numerous editions of Let's Rage Cougs, preparing for it in practice with the Cougs defense is different than playing against it in a game. And Penn had loads of turnovers, finished with 22 turnovers. Cougs had 25 4 points off turnovers advantage. It was just a game that see JoJo play well, get some confidence. First half for Ramon Walker and Xavier Francis were not good by either, as Coach Sampson said. He got on both of them at halftime. They did a better job in the second half.
Most definitely is, especially when, well, real quickly, let me bring up this comment from Joe Mendes. Larry and Stafford says them boys on Kirby. He's going to say them boys on Cullen. Go Cougs. But yeah, it was a interesting night when it came to just the first half again, how well Houston did, only 8-man deep. And going back to the comments that Kelvin Sampson was talking about, obviously he brought up Terrence Arsenault, and we know that his season is done with the Achilles injury. We're not entirely too sure where Jawan Roberts stand, like we mentioned just a few minutes ago. But 8-man deep, and when you look at who they play, they really couldn't play anyone else. I know Ryan Elvin and Cedric Lott got minutes in the second half late, but if they are missing Jawan Roberts for the foreseeable future, at least for an extended period of time, which again is speculation, we don't have any comments to confirm or anything. This is literally just us speculating off the post game, but that could be something that really challenges Houston when they begin Big 12 play.
Oh, no question. If Juan is out for 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, and we're just speculating based on Coach Sampson's kind of cryptic talk, and you can watch post game on YouTube momentarily later on, whatever.
We'll have some clips.
It'll make a difference. But the objective, if the rest would do Juan some good, for this team to be playing their best basketball in March, and that's the bottom line. So if everybody's as healthy as they can be in March for the tournament run, I think fans will be okay with that.
Most definitely. I want to digress to the defense, which was stellar for Houston. I know you mentioned that Penn took a lot of three-point shots. They missed a lot of three-point shots. It's kind of interesting. They missed relatively decent looks, and the first points, or at least the first basket that they made some tough contested threes. So it's just kind of a little bit of a weird first half that it was against Penn. But and Calvin Sampson spoke to this. He mentioned it in one of his opening remarks. That's just give Houston credit for the intensity and really the execution they did on defense, because they were sprinting out on closeouts. They were shuffling their feet. They were rotating. They were doing just about everything that a coach could ask for. And Kelvin Sampson mentioned, like, he absolutely gave credit to them. Now, Penn helped by missing some open looks, by missing some decent shots. But you got to give credit to Houston where it's due, and they played phenomenal from an energy standpoint, which is what Kelvin Sampson shouted out after the game. And it was quite noticeable from the get-go. It was really suffocating for Penn, and it's a big reason why the Quakers turned the ball over 10 times in that first half, 13 times in that first half.
Yeah, when the Cougs trap the guards out high in corners, that's a problem for opponents. But there was a point, first half or so, LJ Cryer had a rotation, was the back line of defense, rotated in the middle of the paint to get a steal, deflection. That's textbook defense rotation. You want your players to be in the right position. They trapped out high, man rolled to the hoop. LJ beat the man to the spot, got the ball. Coaches, they don't know how to Houston grades in the film room or watching games afterwards. Got to give LJ a star or whatever for that rotation, what he did on that play. So it's a good job. But rotations were on point. They were tight for the most part. There were some slips here and there. Sam Brown hit some threes, a couple of threes. I think first was only 2 threes Penn had in the first half for a while. Emmanuel Sharp had his hand down, man down. Sam Brown hit a three. And then at that point, Coach Sampson sent Damian Dunn to the score table to come in for Emmanuel. Then Emmanuel made a three-pointer, and then finished with a strong driving layup. And then Coach said, Damian, come back down, sit on the bench. So.
Yeah, we're going to hear from Kelvin Sampson in a moment. But first, we'd like to thank each and every single one of you guys just watching us. We actually have quite a few viewers. It's cool to see the X viewers now that they've added this feature on StreamYard. We had quite a good amount here from X on the Pod Slamma Jamma YouTube channel, obviously, or on the X channel. And obviously, of course, we have from the Potsdam Jamma YouTube and the Houston Romball Review YouTube channel. We encourage you guys to come up, comment. What did you guys think of the game? Who was your performance? We'll get to a few comments on the other side of this break and when we hear from Kelvin Sampson. But this is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family, the unofficial Houston Cougars post-game show for football and men's basketball.
And the original,
the
first.
I was going to get to that. The original. There's a lot of chatter around Fertitta Center that it just wasn't here last season, which is, it's both cool to see because, you know, the imitation is the best form of flattery, but there's a change of the shift. And you can hear comments from one side of Fertitta Center, from the other, so it's actually pretty cool to see in that aspect, which, like I said, wasn't necessarily the case. But of course, we got to say thank you to the Saxenian Family. They're the primary sponsor for not only today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, but each and every single men's basketball post-game show for the remainder of the regular season. I'm sure they'll jump at it once we get into the postseason with these Houston Cougars. And for this episode, we also like to say thank you to our other sponsor, and that's Star Pizza with 3 locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Be sure to stop by any other locations every Tuesday during lunchtime for an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. Star Pizza, as always, has free delivery since 1976. With that being said, let's hear what head coach Kelvin Sampson had to say after the game following Houston's 81-42 victory over Penn.
Well, yeah, but you know, it wasn't off. I mean, they missed some shots too, so let's not get carried away with being up 18-0. The other team has to contribute. You know, they had some looks that they could have made, but that doesn't take away our effort. Our effort was outstanding. You know, we had a great plan. We knew exactly how we wanted to guard them, and our kids execute. But you know, they had some, even we had some possessions, we guarded them better, and they made it. So, you know, it's like in baseball. You can throw a tremendous pitch, and a guy hits it to the wall, and the guy catches it before it goes out. Then you can throw, you know, change up right down the middle, and he pops it up. So, no, we had some great defensive possessions, but you know, that team can really shoot. You know, we watched them beat Villanova. You know, we watched the Kentucky game where it was a 1-point game late in the second half. So, but there was the Brown kid. His father Brett was the head coach for the Sixers at one point, and Brett's back with Pop now. And they got a bunch of guys. Number 4 is going to be a really good player. Then Spinoso, he does a nice job. But, you know, our quickness and our attention to detail, I thought was good tonight.
Coach, JoJo in his first start at career high, just what do you feel about his performance playing those sort of minutes?
Up and down. I thought his, you know, JoJo can't guard the bounce very good yet. He's never had to do that. You know, he's always played a post man. It's kind of like Dayon. You know, Dayon's having to defend on the perimeter. You don't get good at that just because you want to or you try hard. It just takes experience. It takes time. He's doing a good job at keeping the kid off his left. The problem was he's shooting layups with his right. You know, these guys have 2 hands, JoJo. They're left-handed, but you got to slide your feet. But that'll come in time. You don't come out of high school and be a great player before the month of December. You just going, you know, he'll do something. It's like JBR was 5 for 5 last game, and most people thought he was the second coming. You know, it's just they're up and down. You know why? Because they're human beings. And they're never going to be at the top of the mountain. You're always climbing. That's why I don't get overly excited when they do something good, and I don't react to anything when they do something bad. You know, that's part of being one of God's children. You're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna do some good things. You don't react to one or the other. I never have.
Coach, was resting Dayon that's precautionary today?
I never thought whether it's precautionary or not. I just thought he needed to rest. I have no idea if he could have played today or not. I didn't ask him. I just thought he needed to. The more time we can give him with his injury, probably the better. I'm not very smart, but I figured that out a long time ago.
Damon, how do you think you did today?
Thought I was pretty solid for the most part. Gave up a few points on defense. Had a few lapses just on defense, but those happen. But I gotta clean those up a lot. But for the most part, overall, I thought I could have been a little bit more efficient offensively. Probably getting the ball out quicker and taking care of it more. But thought I was just solid.
So once again, you heard from head coach Kelvin Sampson and Dayon Dunn. We heard a little bit of the Kelvin Sampson remarks in terms of Juwan Roberts. That's not the full cryptic post sentiment, but let's focus on Dayon Dunn. I want to bring up the comment from from Wanda Polk, actually. She said she was encouraged by Damien's performance as the game progressed. We alluded to it earlier in the show, but Kelvin Sampson went in on Dayon Dunn, especially in that first half, talking about just overall the adjustment that he's had to make. Obviously, transferring from Temple to the University of Houston, he said he wasn't sure if he knew what a rebound was with his time at Temple. He was expected to be a scorer, and obviously that's been an adjustment period for Dunn here with the University of Houston Cougars program. But just to echo that sentiment from Wanda Polk, Dayon Dunn in this game didn't necessarily shoot at the best 4 of 11, but he did have 11 points. He got 6 rebounds, which obviously, of course, that's something that's always going to be a point of emphasis for Kelvin Sampson under his program. And we heard from Dayon Dunn there. He said, it was a solid performance, especially in that second half. But that's something that hopefully, and we had mentioned in the previous post-game shows where it kind of seemed like he had hit a slump a little bit. This is something where maybe it's kind of transitioning in the right direction for him, especially we don't know how long Roberts is going to be out. We know most definitely for sure that Terrence Arsenal is not going to be back this season. He's going to be a player that's going to be asked, especially offensively, to potentially produce, especially in these Big 12 games where you would expect it to be close late, and they're going to need to be able to have offense come from someone, and it won't always be able to be from LJ Cryer and Jamal Shedd.
Yeah, Dayon first half, he hesitated on a shot a few too many times. He finally made a 3-pointer, so that was good. But Coach Sampson made a point that I think we, media and fans, we touch on it, but we don't really realize it. Dayon was at Temple for 4 years, playing for really Aaron McKee in the Temple style. So for us to expect Dayon to adjust from 4 years playing in a Temple program that is far, far, far culture-wise different from Houston, and have him hit the ground running so quickly, I think was a mistake by us. So it's going to take him time to adjust to the culture, and he's acknowledging that his teammates are keeping him informed and keeping him up about that and maintaining his confidence. I think he'll be fine. He still thinks a little bit too much on the court rather than reacting, but rebounding is a must if you're going to stay on the rebounding, and defense are a must if you're going to stay on the court for Coach Kelvin Sampson. He did a better job rebounding today, second half. Cut down the turnovers, he'll be okay.
Yeah, I think you could kind of tell. You at least again from the outside perspective, we haven't been able to be at practices, but there was a lot more kind of hustle plays from Dayon in this game. Like he hit the floor a lot in this contest against Penn multiple times, which I'm sure he's had in the past, but maybe that's something where again visually we can see from the outside perspective in this game in particular, kind of the comment that you alluded to, Kris, where at times seemed hesitant, maybe a little bit unrealistic expectations in terms of how smooth that transition will be for him coming from Temple, like you said, where it was a much different culture when it comes to what Houston and what Kelvin Sampson expects of not only Dunn but all his players. But really, one of the things that Dunn did really well, even in this game, was just being able to create moves off the dribble, and he a couple times he was able to get to the basket, and I mean. Sometimes there was a couple of shots where they literally just rimmed out, didn't go. There was one floater where he made a good move, didn't have the best finish, and he missed it a little bit badly. But again, that's encouraging because he's just starting to make more moves where, again, I think once he can find a groove, that's something where, and then going back to first two games of the regular season earlier this year, he had good offensive performances. So now you're kind of like, oh yeah, we saw him do this against us again with Temple last season. Of course, he's gonna come in here and do the same thing, and it's not that easy because they expect so many more things. Rebounding being one of them, the defense being one of them. That really, it's a process, and quite frankly, because of how much is asked and the high expectations, it takes a toll, not only a physical toll, but even a mental toll as well. And like you alluded to, that's something that Dunn has been helped not only by the coaches here, but also the players, and kind of keeping them even keel, and letting them know that hey, it's all part of the process. It's kind of like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, for lack of a better phrase, in terms of everything that's being asked.
And one thing Juan Roberts said in the previous post game, Coach Sampson is hard on his players. And if you're new to a system, it might have taken Dayon a while to get used to the tough love from Coach Kelvin Sampson. So he might have, it's not personal, but if you're not used to it, you could be a player, especially you coming into the program. Man, coach doesn't like me at all, man. Coach is just, I mean, why is he on me so hard? Man, my goodness, I'm trying my best. Doesn't coach see it? And then the players got to tell him, yo, man, this is what's best for you. Coach sees what you can do and provide for this team. He's pushing you to be great for us. Just keep pushing forward. So it's taking him a while, a little bit longer than maybe we thought, but the season is not time for conference play, and he still has time to make an impact positively for the team rest of the season.
And it's all about perspective when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. They still have most of their season left to play when it comes to conference play. And then obviously, of course, with Houston here, they're going to be expected to play not only in the Big 12 tournament, but also come March in the NCAA tournament time. That's what Houston they're building up to. And again, kind of for the several years, Kelvin Sampson always working their way up. They're always looking to progress. I want to transition over. Perfect segue that Michael Jones just brought up, but he said it was a great seeing Tugler play the entire game without dump fouls as he has committed in the past. He's really developing, as Michael Jones on YouTube writes. Jojo Tugler, like we mentioned at the top of the show, he got his first collegiate start. Had a nice game, at least when you look at the box score wise. 13 points, 7 rebounds in 21 minutes. When Kelvin Sampson was asked about him post game, and specifically when it comes to his offense, again, kind of going back to that development that the University of Houston men's basketball team prides itself on, he mentioned how just even a few months ago, like he had no game, or he didn't know about his game, in reference to JoJo Tugler. And over the course of the last few months, he's been able to be developed into having a hook shot that, I mean, he not only in this game, but over the course of the past few games, he's shown off. But that's something where he had a chance to have, I mean, really not even chance. He was asked to have to step up, and he did solid for this being, as a freshman, his first ever collegiate start.
JoJo played the first half with no fouls, I believe. That's got to be the first time he's done it all season. He finished with 3, but to go a half
Might
with
be
no
the first time in
fouls,
his whole career.
because what is it, after one game, doing a press conference, Coach Sampson says JoJo fouls. If he does one thing,
Yeah.
JoJo fouls. Well, he didn't in the first half tonight, so he's getting better. His offensive game, to be a freshman, 18 years old, is ahead of other Cougar big men in recent years. But JoJo's better days are still ahead of him this season and future seasons. So that is a definite positive. He'll continue to put in the work. Got that move to get into the paint with that right hand jump hook. Start adding other things to his game, to his bag, and then become a better free throw shooter. Sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, you're right, Kris. First half, 0 personal fouls for JoJo Tugler. He had 9 points. He had 4 rebounds in 11 minutes. So that we're not even know if he'll be able to do that for the rest of the season. But he had a really strong performance in his first collegiate start in that first half. Certainly a big progress for JoJo Tugler. And like you mentioned, that's really reiterated the message that Kelvin Sampson said post game, where his best basketball is ahead of him. Just a freshman, like you mentioned, till 18 years of age, and what has already been showcased even early on in the season, his athleticism. And they're just going to continue to develop him. And by the time this time next season, I'm sure he's going to look much more of a fluid player. And just imagine him 2 years from now, 3 years from now, something again. We're kind of harping on the Kelvin Sampson message, but they really pride themselves on that development. And kind of a coincidence or a good note to mention that Fabian White was in the building here for this game against Penn, and he's a great example of kind of the trajectory where Jojo Tugler could kind of follow that path. And based on Kelvin's comments post game in his presser after Penn, he's already ahead of where Fabian was as a freshman. So they're very excited on the sky for Mr. Tugler.
And I think he is going to be a beast, but makes you wonder how long he'll be in college. He'll be here for one more year, and then next season, who knows after that? Whether that's the right move or not, but just putting it out there.
It's a great problem to have. To have. But real quickly, I'd like to remind everybody that they are watching Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family, the unofficial and original postgame show for Houston Cougars men's basketball and football. We're coming off the heels, like we mentioned, of Houston's final non-conference game, a victory, 81-42 victory over Penn, to finish the non-conference mark at 13-0. Up next is Big 12 play. We'll get to that in a little bit, but first we'll hear what Kelvin Sampson. We'll hear more comments from Kelvin Sampson. We'll hear a little bit more from Dayon Dunn on this side. What is Houston?
It's just been a steady improvement. Just learning every day, taking my lessons for what they are. Coach never says you win or lose. It's either you're gaining wisdom or you're learning. And I think that's kind of what I'm going through now. Just taking something from each day, but also leaning on my teammates to kind of help me grow through the process as well. So, they've been doing a good job of just helping me grow through it. And, I've been embracing my role and just trying to get better every day.
What does 13-0 mean to this team going perfect in non-conference?
Probably nothing. And I mean this sincerely, they probably take their cue from me. I don't overreact to wins and losses. I just never have. I've lost a ton of games. I've never, ever worried about losing a game. I've been disappointed a lot we lost, but that's probably the extent of it. Because we have another game to play. I don't spend all my time looking in the rearview mirror. Some of you guys' jobs is to talk about a loss for days. I talk about it when the game's over and before the next practice, and I'm ready for the next one. I don't spend any time worrying about it. And I've got a lot of experience in losing games. I've lost a lot of games, but as you get older, you realize it's over. Move on. I'm not going to sit here and cut it up and overanalyze it or diagram it or Benihana it and just start chopping it to death. It's a loss. It's one game. We're going to lose some games. Wait till we lose the game, how people will react. But that's how people are. Thank God they're not the coach. Thank God I'm the coach, because I know how to handle a loss. I think Kansas won the Big 12 last year and they lost 5 times. That may not finish first this year. There's so many good teams in the league. You're going to lose 5, 6, 7 games. And as long as you keep your team prepared, get ready for the next one, and have good kids. Good kids handle adversity really good. And we've really zeroed in our recruiting with evaluation. We don't really recruit in the pure sense of it. We evaluate. Now, some of you guys get to know our kids and you realize how good at kids we are. Well, we knew that. We knew that the first time we met them, which is probably years and years before you ever met them. Like Ramon. Remember going over to Shadow Creek, Campbell Center, watching Ramon. Dayon. We interrogated the people in Damien's life at Temple, whether it was Coach McKee, some of the assistant coaches, people at the university. Because we can't allow anybody to come in here and mess with our culture. And there is nobody bigger than this program. So it's really important for a coach at this level to recruit a kid that you can lose with. You gotta be able to lose with these guys. because you will. 1976 was the last time a team went undefeated, and it probably will never happen again. But you're gonna have nights you don't play poor against a good team, you'll lose. We've beaten a lot of teams that are probably just as good as we are. They just played poorly that night, so they lost. And we've had a lot of games where we probably should have lost, and we've just played good enough to win. But I'll go to the mat for these kids. I have great kids. That's a blessing.
Once again, that was Houston Cougars head coach Kelvin Sampson. That last statement right there, I think that's where you kind of, to me, that just shows where, again, from an outside perspective, but there's a lot of that comment right there. I think that's where you get a lot of the buy-in from the players, because they definitely know that for however hard Kelvin Sampson might be on them in practices and during games, I don't think a single one of them questions how he does have their back, and he's willing to go through the fires, the trials and tribulations with them. I think that's a very underrated aspect in terms of how successful, really the success, and how dominant or how strong really the culture has been, because they are fully invested in his message, and that allows Kelvin Sampson to be able to coach his players hard.
And Coach has said it to us throughout these 10 years. It's a family. It's not just Lauren and Kellen, part of the staff. As Coach Kelvin Sampson has said to us, and he probably will say it during this season, these kids are his life. He doesn't have to be their lives, but these kids are his life. And he spends time because, as he has said numerous times, the parents are trusting him to take care of their kid, their son, to help them become better men as well as better basketball players. And he takes that role very seriously. So it is tough love, but he will go to the mat, as he said, for his kids all the time. But it is important to have players who hate to lose, but understand that you cannot win every game. Don't let losing become a habit, but you understand that you will not win every game. And there will be some game that you could play, shoot lights out, play great, get a bad break here, tough call here, whatever, and still lose. And accept it, move on, put it behind you, on to the next. And that's part of the process, part of the Houston Cougar culture for men's basketball.
Yeah, not to be the Debbie Downer or anything, but those tough games are coming when it comes to Big 12 conference play. And there might be a stretch here and there where, again, it's gonna be it's very interesting. It's exciting time because, of course, not to lose sight, like this is the first ever Big 12 conference slate that Houston, this men's basketball team, that they have a proven track record of not only the sustained success that they were able to have in the American Athletic Conference, but the national success when it comes to deep runs. I mean, they've the worst, quote unquote, and I say that in quotes for a reason, that they've done in the NCAA tournament for the past 4 years now, going back to 2019, I guess 5 seasons, is a Sweet 16 run. Like, that's the worst that they've had. They've had a Final Four run. They've had Elite 8 runs. They've had, obviously, of course, last season when they had the Sweet 16 run. So they've been able to achieve that high level success, but obviously it does come with adversity. It's not going to be it's going to be a much different road than it has been in years past in the American Athletic Conference. And we'll put that there. Let's transition over back to this game specifically as we kind of wrap things up. Houston and Penn. One of the players that we haven't really mentioned, but again, he's just become Mr. Consistency with his stat line. He got to 12 points again, and that's Emmanuel Sharp, 5 for 10, 2 for 5 on his 3-point shots. Had 4 rebounds, actually had 3 personal fouls as well, but he had a big boy layup in the game where we both looked at each other the moment,
weight room layup.
He did it. With the moment he did it. And again, that's to kind of show the progress that he's made, because he wasn't making those plays Sharp was a season ago. And again, that to me, that visually shows how much confident he is in his body and being able to put the ball on the floor, make a play.
I mean, he sought out contact on that drive to the hoop. He made the contact. You could have called him a push off, finished through the contact, made the layup. And you and I looked at each other like, wow. But that's part of the work from strength coach Alan Bishop. Salute to Emmanuel Sharp putting in the work, because Emmanuel Sharp, his body fat percentage was much higher when he arrived on campus than it is now. And you talked to him when he was still in high school. I think you and Dan interviewed him, and he talked
Yeah.
about he was coming off injuries. So he's come a long way. And prior to his injury, Emmanuel Sharp was one of a top 100 recruit in the country. And then when he got injured, people forgot about him, except for Houston. Part of the evaluation the Cougs do. And now they developed him. His game is continuing to develop outside, inside, putting the ball on the floor, getting to the rim, and finishing through contact. It's good to see.
We mentioned with JoJo Taylor about how long he might be in the program. Manuel Sharp could potentially be another one of those names where, uh, depending on how well good of a season, maybe just one more year, we shall see. But he continues to showcase what he did tonight. And again, I think the biggest thing with him, at least from in my opinion, is just the consistency, because night in and night out, like at minimum, he's getting to 12, and then he's had nights like he did a couple of games ago when he got up and he heated up and he got up to 20 plus points. So he gets a chance to be a really good player, not only in college, but potentially at the next level as well.
And he's a floor spacer. He's on the floor. You got to teams have to be out to him beyond the 3-point line. So that's good. Opens up drives for Jamal and LJ. So it's just good to see his game continue to expand.
There's definitely big props to Speedy Wolfbear, who he's saying Houston Cougars basketball are doing great things, and just the defense and then bigs in Houston are awesome. He's from outside San Antonio, Texas, so I imagine he's joining us from around the San Antonio area. So welcome in, Speedy. Good to have you on the show here. Let's Rage Coogs. Um, Not to steal your catchphrase, Kris, for the Houston Round Ball Review, but we always like to have as many people join in from all over the country, quite frankly, all over the world. There's a fan from Germany that pops in every
Mm-hmm.
now and then as well. Ramon Walker, we was in the post game press conference. Calvin Sampson was asked about him. He said that Ramon Walker did not have a really good first half. Not only himself, but a couple of other players lit into them, and that turn around the second half, they had a much better performance. Specifically when it comes to Ramon Walker, you asked him about how his role changes with the injury to Terrence Arsenault, and the answer he gave is, I mean, what you would expect from a Kelvin Sampson player. He says he wants to do the dirty work. Like, he prides himself on getting those rebounds, on playing good defense. He doesn't necessarily care whether he scores or not.
Yeah, Ramon said his role probably doesn't change. I mean, from a rebounding defensive standpoint, it probably won't change. He may have to score at some point this season a little bit more, but he was flying all over the court like he does, getting rebounds, throwing his body all over the floor, just making hustle plays, and he's happy in his role. He says he's willing to do whatever. He's good to do whatever coach wants him to do. If that means crash a board, defend, rebound, he's happy to do it.
One of the other things as we kind of wind things down, Jamal Shed, again, kind of under the radar in this game, but he did tally up 14 points, had 4 assists, 3 steals, and only 1 turnover. He is, again, not to kind of keep reusing the word, but he's might be necessarily asked again, depending on what the status is of Jawan Roberts going forward, but he might be asked to not necessarily score more, but just responsibilities in terms of being able to play make and create for others during conference play. Might get to start to see a lot more responsibilities on the court. What say you?
Agreed, he might have to do that. The team only had 7 turnovers today. They forced 22. Jamal can do it. He's capable of scoring more if need be. Let's talk about it. Next Saturday, West Virginia. They got Raekwon Battle back, or transfer portal eligible. In 3 games, he's averaging 30 points a game. He scored 24 points today against Ohio State in an overtime loss, but he's getting buckets for them. So he is going to be the Cougs' number 1 option to stop or contain defensively. And then we'll see how West Virginia handles Houston's rotations, defensive pressure, traps, etc. But of course, I'm also excited about Red Panda performing at halftime, next Saturday of the Cougs game.
You said that's the Big 12. That's the Big 12 the Big 12 halftime act. It's a step up now when it comes to the halftime entertainment that they're going to be providing here at the Fertitta Center. Hopefully, I'm excited to see what the crowd is for that game. It's going to be a Saturday. I believe it's going to be a 1 p.m. tip off, the inaugural Big 12 conference opener when it comes to the Houston Cougars men's basketball team. And kind of interesting that when you think of football, you think of, I believe it was volleyball, and obviously, of course, men's basketball. Here in this upcoming week, they all open up their conference slates with, or they don't
West
open,
Virginia.
but West Virginia, they
Yep.
tended to be the first victories for those two programs. Well, men's basketball team opens up for West Virginia, so it'll be interesting to note. On the topic of conference play, it's going to be a gauntlet. We just know what's coming. There's going to be a lot of adversity that's still going to be really faced with this team that, depending on who you say, depending on who you ask, because of course, we talk about the quad one wins that Houston is right behind Purdue when it comes to the most quad one wins this season, but outside of Xavier and Texas A&M, haven't necessarily had a close game
Utah.
when it comes to needing to execute. Oh, Utah as
Right.
well. Um, that was that was a little bit more of a handed. It was tough down the stretch, but they didn't have to necessarily execute down the stretch when it comes to late game execution. That's coming in Big 12 conference play, and whether the teams in terms of health or not, it's going to be interesting to see how they perform because obviously, of course, it's a gauntlet that kind of prepares them for obviously the Big 12 tournament, but obviously we all know the big tournament that's coming in March, the NCAA tournament. And from a outside perspective, from a fan perspective, it's going to be really interesting to see how Houston does against the top of the top night in and night out, which hasn't been the case for the past few years.
Big 12 is better than the American. We all know that. We're going to see it firsthand starting next Saturday. So the haters out there saying, oh, the Cougs, who they played. Well, they got 4 quad one wins, tied for second most in the country. And they'll have plenty of opportunities to get quad one, quad two wins in Big 12 play. I'm curious to see if they'll learn more about Juwan Roberts' injury status and Coach Sampson's upcoming press conference this week. And then we'll see if he's going to play next Saturday against West Virginia or sit out the game.
And it's kind of interesting for Houston. They get much needed rest. Like I said, they'll be off from now until next Saturday when they open conference play against those Mountaineers. Speaking of Big 12 play, I got a chance to see Kansas play a little bit against Wichita State. And my goodness, Kansas, that's a problem for later down the road. But sheesh, yeah, when you say that the Big 12, night and day difference when it comes to the American Athletic Conference. Obviously, Wichita State, especially this season, I think they're going to be one of the top half of the American Athletic Conference. But boy, they did not look like they were on par with Kansas in that game. So again, an eye opener of what's to come for Houston. Real quickly before we wrap things up, again, a reminder for those of you guys joining. First and foremost, thank you guys for taking the time out of your Saturdays here to join us on Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial and original postgame show for Houston Cougars football and men's basketball. And of course, we also like to say thank you to our secondary sponsor for today's episode, which is Star Pizza, with 3 locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Be sure to stop by any of the locations every Tuesday during lunchtime for an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. Star Pizza, as always, has free deliveries since 1976. On that note, Kris, I'll toss it over to you. Any final takeaways either of this game against Penn, non-conference schedule overall? We saw in that clip where Calvin Sampson was asked what 13-0 means to him in non-conference, and he says, nothing pretty much. But any final takeaways from either this game, non-conference later, or upcoming when it comes to West Virginia?
I think, the second time Houston's gone 13-0. The 18-19 team did it as well. I just want to thank the fans who come up to us and recognize us and give us our kudos for the work we do and watching the shows, and they enjoy the podcast. And we appreciate the support. Continue supporting us, watching the show, spread the word about Let's Rage Coogs. We appreciate it.
Yeah, kind of perfect perfect timing, Gary Nail from X.com. We do have those X comments. Feel free to comment on the
Yep.
show because we can bring you guys up now on X, which wasn't always the case. But he says, thank us for the perspective. And yeah, I 100% reiterate your message, Chris. It's still awesome. Obviously, this is a rare opportunity. I think this is the first regular season game that I've been to this season, but it's still awesome where people come up, and even though it's been so long or haven't been obviously at a show, they still remember, they still recognize. And then obviously, of course, the tweet you shared yesterday from Toyota Center, now you're getting
Yep.
recognized all over the city of Houston, not just at U of H games, which is really awesome. And quite frankly, it's a testament to the hard work that we've all put in. And it's just amazing to see that there is that there's just that acknowledgement. It's always awesome. It's always amazing to say, and we can never say thank you enough.
Agreed. And stick with us throughout Big 12 play because we'll be doing post games throughout the season, rest of the season. Go Cougs.
Yes, sir. That's each and every single basketball game. Once again, the final from inside the Fertitta Center, a final score of 81-42 in favor of the number third ranked team in the country, and that is the Houston Cougars. The Cougars finished, like we mentioned, 13-0 non-conference play. Their next upcoming matchup will be a week from today as they open Big 12 play against West Virginia, January 6th. It's going to be a new year. It's 2024. Hard to believe already that this year has come and gone, and it was a very jam-packed year with so many things that happened from the first to the last day, which is still tomorrow. So happy New Year's to each and every single one of you guys that are watching us either on YouTube or on X. Happy New Year's to you as well, Chris. Once again, the final score here, Houston wins 81-42, and that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode. Thanks each and every single one of you guys. Thank you to the Saxenian family. Thank you to Star Pizza, and we will see you guys a week from today following Houston's inaugural Big 12 opener against the West Virginia Mountaineers. Houston will be looking to improve to 14-0, while West Virginia will be looking to spoil that undefeated streak and start conference play out on top. That being said, Chris, where can people find you on the social webs?
Follow me on social media, Houston Rombar View on Threads, Spoutable, Instagram, TikTok. Thank you again for the kind words and the support. And Andy and I have merch. You can go to the link to website there, Houston Rombar Review, to get the merch, hoodies and mugs and all that great stuff, as well as Andy will tell you about Paul Simma merch also. And you got to close it out with Dayon's closing, so you got it.
I got a big shoes to fill, but first and foremost, I got to, of course, got to plug out the merch. H-Town, that's right. We do have merch which you guys can find in. Actually, I'll post a link in the description of this show, of this link here on YouTube, wherever you get Let's Rage Coogs, obviously here for those of you guys that are joining us on the Pod Slam Jamma YouTube channel. Thank each and every single one of you guys, whether it be on the Houston Rombar Review YouTube channel, if you're watching us on Next, or you're checking us out audio only in whichever respective platforms you do. We can never say thank you enough for the support. You guys can follow me on X at Ayanez_5. Like I mentioned, once again, next time we will be joining you guys, it will be the rear view mirror when it comes to Big 12 conference play. So exciting times. Stick with us. As always, go Cougs.